age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenueradio.world.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. Today, we are hosting a debate. Now, if you've been listening to Rainier Avenue Radio, we have been doing this the entire month of October, basically. We've done the gubernatorial debate, the lieutenant governor debate. We've hosted congressional debates, legislative debates, forums for black candidates from Pierce County, Snohomish County, King County. We've talked about Referendum 90. We've hosted Supreme Court Justice debates. We've hosted Superior Court Justice debates. All to inform you, to help provide you with information to be a more informed voter. And what we just saw, what we've witnessed, was an election where more people have voted than ever before. The losing candidate for president of the United States, and I'm not here to have a political debate about that if someone feels that he hasn't lost yet, but it has been called, the Electoral College has not yet verified it, but all of the news agencies have verified 71 million plus votes for who lost. That would have been enough to win another election. 76 million for the winner. So the awareness of voting, I guess I could just say good job to everyone. But that's why it's critical, because in this community we live in, same deal. The presidential election is one thing, but the down ballot issues are where you have the most impact. And so we are hosting a debate for the NAACP presidential candidates. That's important too. Now, if you're not a member, you won't be able to vote, but you should still be aware who the candidates are. We are going to have someone come on, Allison Fine, will tell us about how the voter process works so that you'll know who the folks are who are going to be voting on your behalf. Now, the thing about the NAACP is even if you're not a member, they do advocate for you, or they're supposed to. So, first of all, again, before we get started, I want to thank the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle for sponsoring and powering our entire community election connection, stepping up to the plate and recognizing how important it was for our community to be informed. We reached all over the state with this effort. This also included something we call the Student Election Connection. And these are things that you may be unaware of. Again, our goal at Rainier Avenue Radio is just to make sure that our community is informed. And so sometimes these may be really big issues, sometimes they may be small issues. But that's what we do. And so that's why we're hosting this debate with the NAACP, to make sure that our community is informed. There is an election taking place on November 21st, and not many people even knew there was an election. And so this will follow a similar format to our other debates. I think, however, I am going to need to provide some context. Now, let me be clear. This is not personal. This is not Tony Benton, Tony B, with any particular issue with the NAACP or any of the candidates. Consider Rainier Avenue Radio a mirror. And what we do is reflect what's going on in our communities and provide our community members an opportunity to take a look. What we try to do is help with the transparency. So, we decided to do an NAACP debate, invited the candidates to come on and share their viewpoints. 30 minutes of pretty much uninterrupted opportunity to share the platform, talk about who they were, what they like, and all of our candidates participated in that. All of our candidates accepted the offer also to participate in the debate. I'm not going to get into the particulars that I don't have information on. When you hear information from me, it is either going to be fact or opinion-based, facts based off of opinion, not just my opinion. I can tell you that I received a letter from the NAACP asking me to cease and desist with this effort to inform the community. Now, this I don't know for sure because I never saw any paperwork, but evidently there were some meetings, and our candidates can talk about this if they'd like to, where the candidates were informed that they were not to appear on this debate. And that's not going to stop us from doing it, but I just have to share that information with you. And evidently there was more than one meeting. I was not contacted about that. I was told to cease and desist in the effort to do the debate, but I was not contacted about that other information. I replied, and I offered the NAACP the opportunity to come on the air and share whatever information, raise funds, raise membership. I did get a reply back that was yes, and then I never heard anything. I will say that I was also contacted by multiple people asking if I would do a debate. And I felt that the community wanted more information, and so we were going to move forward whether someone showed up today or not. We do have moderators. We have students who are going to be participating. The debate will work like this. Our candidates will get an opportunity for opening statements, which will be 2 minutes apiece, and then they will get questions from our moderators that will be either 2 minutes or 1 minute to answer. We're going to do this in 3 sections. One will be the student-led sections, and these are students who participated in our Student Election Connection, which again was a voter awareness campaign, 5 workshops, in some instances 10 workshops, where students became, again, more informed about voting. 18 to 24 is the group that votes the least, and at 16 and 17, you can actually pre-register to vote so that when you turn 18, you're already registered. But when you're put out there to navigate all of this stuff and you don't have information, well, what are you going to vote on and who are you going to vote for? And so we put together a very comprehensive series of workshops to inform and then also make sure that the youth understood that if they had this feeling that they were not connected to the sphere of influence, that they had the tools to connect their issues and concerns to the electoral process. We're really excited about that too, and that was something that happened all over the state. Again, you may not have heard about that. I think King 5 did a story on it. But what we're trying to do is inform and educate our community. I'd also like to mention, again, so this is not something, well, I take that back. At 12:30 today, I did get a phone call from the person who sent me the letter telling me to cease and desist, saying, never mind, go ahead and do the debate. We appreciate it, we approve of it, and it's a good thing. And so better late than never. Again, it was never personal, it was just the community should know what's going on. So at 12:30 today, I got a phone call. I haven't received anything in writing, but I did get a phone call saying, yes, we think this is a good idea, go ahead, move forward with it. So I'm going to take it, and I'm sharing that with you that it was a phone call. I can't prove in writing that that was the case, but I do have endorsements from the Washington State Civil Rights Coalition, representing 37 community-based agencies, from the Martin Luther King Celebration Coalition, from the Kent Black Action Commission, from OCA, Asian Pacific Advocates, Seattle King County. And this was all put together kind of at the last minute, and these are folks who stepped up and thought that this would be a good idea. And so we are going to host a debate. One of our candidates will not be here. One of our candidates decided to opt out. And I will read you the letter of that particular candidate. I'm also going to introduce our moderators. And again, this wasn't initially supposed to be part of the debate, but I felt that it was necessary for me to add context to this because at the end of the day, there are no African Americans on the city council. And when coronavirus happened, I think that everyone was looking for what agency, what entity, what individuals in the Black community would be there because we knew that this coronavirus was going to impact our community far greater, not just greater, far greater than it was impacting other communities, and that proved to be true. And so Rainier Avenue Radio on March 13th began broadcasting coronavirus specials and sharing with our community what was actually taking place. And when our community was saying that Black people can't get it, it was something that impacts and affects elderly white folks, because at the time Kirkland was considered to be the epicenter. We had someone on the air from South Seattle saying, I'm COVID positive. We had community members from our schools who were being challenged because Asian students were already being discriminated against, because that's what we do. You're listening again to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It's me, Tony B. This is our NAACP presidential candidate debate. Who were the folks who you anticipated would be there when the coronavirus pandemic happened, when George Floyd was murdered and we watched 8 minutes and 46 seconds of his life being taken away from him at the knee of a white police officer? Who did you anticipate being there? Well, we know that several people stepped up, and I can name a number of them. The Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, Africa Town, Community Passageways, Converge Media, the Seattle Medium, South Seattle Emerald. I mean, I can go on. Individuals stepped up. Victoria Beach, Ruby Holland. Lots of folks stepped up during this time. And so that's one of the things about a crisis, is it provides an opportunity for the community to see where leadership is. There were also faith-based organizations that stepped up as well. Conspicuously, there were folks who were absent, and I'm not going to talk about who those organizations or individuals were that you anticipated would be there, because they are charged with being there. What we do know, and I don't want to forget King County Council members Gurmay Zahilai as well. But we didn't have any African Americans on the city council. And now that we've seen what has happened, who on the city council was looking out for the interest of African Americans? And again, I'm not trying to tell you what to think or how to think. I am just putting the information in front of you so that you can decide and discern for yourself. I will say this. I know that some of the city council members, one in particular, hijacked a rally at Rainier Beach that Tia Yarborough put together to use that event. And I'm talking about Kashama Sawant, and I have the tape. So I'm not, again, everything I'm saying is, if it's opinion, it's fact-based. So you can hear for yourself what was done at that rally. There were several African Americans at that rally who were inspirational, who at a time of crisis provided leadership. So that's just one example. And so here we are now with an organization that is historical, the NAACP. I'll tell you a little bit about the NAACP. This is an organization that, wow, where do you begin? You know what, I just might let a few other people who are here talk about that, because I didn't want to spend all this time, but the Seattle branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People was founded in October 23rd, 1913, and became the first of the national civil rights organizations to be established in this city. The National NAACP was founded on February 12th, 1909. So 4 years later, Seattle established a chapter. I will briefly talk about why, as a historical civil rights organization, we expect more from our Seattle NAACP. In its early years, the Seattle NAACP staged protest marches, filed lawsuits against discrimination, sponsored celebrations of Emancipation Day and Lincoln's birthday, protested the showing of the anti-black film Birth of a Nation. During the 1920s, Seattle's NAACP mobilized for a number of reasons. To fight an anti-intermarriage bill under consideration by state legislature. Now, there were also some dormant periods. The Great Depression of the 1930s breathed new life into the civil rights organization as the NAACP sought to respond to the economic crisis in Black Seattle. It took up many cases of employment discrimination and racial harassment. As Seattle's black population grew during the 1940s, there was an increasing segregation and exclusion in restaurants, theaters, motels, and recreational areas. The NAACP filed successful lawsuits against many of the offenders and campaigned against discriminatory policies. Seattle branch began to sponsor chapters in other Washington cities that had rapid increases in black populations. They lobbied in Olympia for fair employment practices. Again, I'm talking from 1913. In the 1960s and 1970s, the NAACP, after a statewide rally in Olympia for an open housing bill, which eventually failed, the association's newsletter suggested that license plates should be made which read Washington, State of Segregated Housing and Schools. In 1968, a Seattle City ordinance for open housing was passed. Washington State finally passed an open housing law in 1969. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. Larry Steele served as president for 26 years through 1998. In 1999, Oscar Eason was elected as president. In 2002, Carl Mack was elected as president in the first contested race in 30 years. In 2005, Mr. Mack stepped down as the head of the Seattle chapter in order to accept the position as executive director of the National Society of Black Engineers. Seattle attorney Al Foster Garrett Jr., who had been chapter vice president, took over. James Bible, a Seattle attorney, became the organization's third president in 2 years in 2007. Just a little history about the NAACP. 2008, Bible called for the resignation of Seattle Police Chief Gil Kurlikowski. So I believe there was some anticipation that the NAACP would be an organization that the black community could lean on, that other members of other organizations, of other ethnic cultural organizations, of other government entities, of other private industries would look to the NAACP. I'm not going to get into the dirt of this, but last year the president came under fire for potential misappropriation of funds. Whether you are are happy about that, disagree with that, she did have the courage to come on the air and discuss it. Which is why I thought it was necessary to ask this year's candidates to come on the air and discuss it, and which is why I was surprised when initially I was told not to hold this debate. And then the candidates were told not to show up. Again, this is not personal. I just thought that I should add some context to this conversation. So, I'm going to kind of do a roll call now and find out who we've got on here with us. Allison, are you there? Allison?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Mack, Carl, are you there?
He's on mute, but he's here.
Okay. And Michele, I know you're here. Nate, I know that you're here. Deaunte is here. And Carolyn, are you here?
I am.
Awesome. I definitely want to thank our two candidates for showing up. Again, I know that you were told not to, and maybe we'll talk about that, maybe we won't. That will depend on our moderators. I'd like to make sure that our students are here as well. Jaden, are you here? Unmute yourself, Jaden. Let me make sure you're here. Jaden?
Do you mean Caden?
Caden! I'm sorry, Caden. Caden, is that you, Caden? Yes. Taylor Corrine, are you here?
I'm here.
Ayla, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Well, we're going to get this started by finding out about how this process works. And so I'm going to welcome to this broadcast right now Allison Fine from the NAACP. Allison, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking the initiative to get in touch with me and being here and offering to come on the air today. How are you today?
I am doing well. How are you?
Under the circumstances, fantastic. I'd like to get started by having you share essentially the way that this works. And I'm going to also give anyone the opportunity after my little monologue, if you feel that something that I said is untrue or was not fair, I am certainly open to hearing and sharing that information with our audience, because this is not about me. Again, I am trying to simply be a mirror that reflects what happens, and I had to add context to this conversation because of everything that's gone on. But Allison, you're certainly open to do that if there's something like you'd like to share about what I said. But what I would like you to do is just tell us a little bit about how the electoral process works with the NAACP Seattle-King County chapter.
So thank you, Tony, for having me on today. I am an NAACP member, only a pretty new member, actually, but I jumped in and helped with the nominations committee, and now I'm part of the election supervisory committee. So it is a little bit different this year because the traditional ways that the NAACP does their elections is a very in-person event normally, and the national organization had indicated that they would prefer chapters do electronic voting if possible. They did not change their bylaws to do that, so each chapter is sort of left open to figuring out how to get that done in the most effective way. So essentially, the election supervisory committee was presented with a slate of all the potential candidates. We were going to have more of a drive-through situation where people would just drive up. We would give them a ballot. We would check their eligibility and their membership, give them a ballot as appropriate, let them fill it out in their car and then take it. After that national warning, we decided that we would also switch to an online version. There was an option to use one particular program that for some reason, which I don't really know, was going to delay elections into January. And we wanted to not have to delay that since we were already so far into our election season. So we decided to use a program called OPA Vote. Essentially what will happen is that anybody who is an eligible member as of October 22nd, which is 30 days prior to the election. And that is in the bylaws. You have to be a member at least 30 days before the election. So anybody who was a member up until October 22nd should be getting a ballot electronically through the email that they provided when they signed up to be a member. They will have a 12-hour period from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday, November 21st, where they can go to their email, find that email, click the appropriate links, fill out the information, vote, and their vote will be counted. With that, obviously, there comes some changes. I know in the past, I don't know historically. Definitely, Dr. Mack or Carolyn or Mr. Miles could speak to this. But I know that at least in the last election, there was less than 100 people that showed up in person to vote. However, we anticipate that many, many more people will be able to vote because we are doing it electronically. So we're hoping for a really good turnout with the electronic system. But we also anticipate that there will be a lot of questions involved.
Okay. Thank you, Allison. And can you tell us what the membership is so that we're aware of how many folks might be possibly voting or at least have the option to vote?
So I don't have access to the membership list as part of the supervisory committee. I know that's a conversation that we've had. I believe that there's over 800 people in the system. I'm not sure how many of those are active members. President Riley Payne will probably be able to address that more directly. President Payne and the executive committee have much more access, and the secretary have access to the list. So I don't really know. And right now we're actually trying to figure out how we get the email list into the voting system because there's some issues with that. So we're working on getting that all figured out. But we know that there's quite a few hundred members that will be voting hopefully next week.
All right. And
so Tony, if I could add.
Well, one second. Or unless you're going to provide some context to this, Carl, go ahead.
Yeah. Tony, Carl Mack. That question that you asked absolutely at this point has to be known. You have to know if the cutoff date for members' eligibility to vote is October 30th, and we have passed that date. There should be a known list of those who are eligible. Otherwise, you start getting questions about credibility, about all of those things. And each candidate has the ability, per the Constitution and bylaws, to provide a person who will serve as their representative. So from a branch perspective, the NAACP has to establish that question that you asked. There should be an absolute concrete answer of how many members are eligible to vote at this time. That should not be, there's 800 and I'm not sure. I'm not saying that Allison should know it, but that answer should be absolutely known, especially by the candidates. And if the candidates wants to peruse that membership so that they can now campaign, they should be allowed to do that. So if these things are not happening, again, this is part of the problem with, if you want to talk about voter fraud, and the NAACP was built on fighting against voting irregularities. And now you have a perfect recipe if no one knows who's eligible to vote in this NAACP election.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Mack. And that's why I asked, because all I'm looking for is transparency in this process. And if you're not a member and you don't know what the bylaws are, you probably think, oh, everything's going to work out just fine. Again, this is why we're asking for transparency, because this individual, I've talked to you about the history of this organization and the crisis that we're in right now. This individual should be a very important person in the lives of African Americans and all Americans as we go through this surge right now and this crisis and this pandemic and all the things that we're facing. So thank you, Mr. Mack. Allison, is there anything else that you want to add about the electoral process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I absolutely agree with Dr. Mack that, you know, there should be an absolute end date of October 22nd, and we should know exactly what that number is. Deaunte mentioned that it was 838. Again, we as the election supervisory committee, we have a lot of responsibility, but we don't always have access, unfortunately, because of the bylaws. So that's why at this point in time, I can't provide that answer, but I know that Carolyn probably can. Deaunte's on the executive committee, and our secretary, who's not part of this, you know, definitely should have that.
Okay.
Okay, wait, hold on, because this is not going to be a free-for-all. We're going to get back, and we will have time to do this. When we get back, we're going to start the debate. Our initial questions will come from our students. We will introduce the candidates. We'll be back from break in just a couple of minutes. We'll be prepared to start the debate, and we will get into some of these issues. There will be room for that as well. We'll be back right after this. Rainier Avenue.
Hey, total number is 829. Because he just.
One, two, get down.
What's up, big and little homies? This is Masvita Merriweather, host of Seattle Sports Weekly on RainierAvenueRadio.world, your one-stop shop for Seattle sports. We cover preps, we cover college, we cover pro, we cover it all. Huskies, Mariners, Seahawks, Garfield, South, Roosevelt, Metro, King County. This is where you want to listen to for all the sports that's happening in Seattle. Seattle Sports Weekly on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
See a bad
The Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, empowering communities and changing lives. The Urban League has been there to serve when our community is at its lowest. It's never mattered what the crisis was. The systemic oppression remains constant for those most vulnerable. Here at the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, we'll be temporarily adjusting our hours of operation and available services. If you are in need of resources, we recommend that you give us a call at 206-461-3792. To make an appointment, press 0 and speak with the receptionist. Walk-in hours will be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. And hey, we'll gladly work with you via phone as best as we can if you're exhibiting any signs of illness to assist you with information to save your home, find you a place to sleep, or connect you to job opportunities. The Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. That's 206-461-3792. Rainier Avenue Radio presents All Music, All Day Saturday. Music, all day Saturday.
This is Edwin Bailey, Bulldog Blue.
Jazz from the Cabinets.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Star Time.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pierce. This is Star Time.
Saturdays, all music, all day. Reggae Hour. K-Fox Night.
Looking for the perfect beat? Yeah, it's the beat of the box.
Fresh Juice with D-Money in the group.
Myself, D-Money.
Nice Size Patron.
Taylor Hart.
Resistencia. The Northwest Rap Game.
DJ Medina. Chad Cheddar.
Come on.
Northwest Rap Game.
Sergio LaCour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone lines. Hello, who we talking?
C-Monster Radio. Mo Jams is your jam.
We're live. Welcome to Mo Jam Mondays. This is KZ of KZ Music Media. Caller Goddess for Mo Jam Mondays.
Just my opinion. God is inspiration. Music. All day and all night. Saturdays on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
You are listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Welcome back to RainierAvenueRadio.world. This is our debate. The candidates for president of the Seattle King County branch of the NAACP. We're a little behind schedule again. I felt that I had to add some context to this, so I want to make sure that we get our students on who are going to be asking questions of our candidates. But first, let me welcome our candidates who will get 2-minute opening statements. I don't have a bio for Deaunte. Mr. Damper, how are you?
I'm blessed to be here. How are you?
Good to have you here. I do have a bio for Miss Carolyn Riley Payne. Riley Payne started her advocacy early in life, serving as a vice president of the Youth Council of the Durham chapter of the NAACP. Impacted by her mentor, Dr. Rose Butler Brown, Riley Payne was able to see that there was a world waiting for her gifts and that she had an obligation to share them by serving with others. After graduating from Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina, she served as a special education teacher in Washington, D.C. Once in Seattle, Riley Payne found a new career path to National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, where she served for over 30 years. She quickly moved up the ranks to eventually become supervisory branch chief of the NOAA. And I can go on. And currently, Ms. Riley Payne is the interim president of the NAACP. Did I get that right, Carolyn?
No, I'm the president.
President. Okay, not interim. You are the president.
I am serving out a term of the last president. I am the president, though.
Okay. Thank you very much. So at this time, we're going to do a coin flip about who will get the first question and who will go first, except that I'm not going to flip a coin. I've written down the coin flip already, and I'm going to put it up here. So Ms. Carolyn, would you say heads or tails?
Heads.
It's tails. So, Mr. Damper, this gives you the opportunity to get the first question, or to say, I want to defer, and take the question second. And it will be the same thing with the last closing statement. You can either go first or last. So would you like to go first, or would you like to defer?
I would like to defer.
You would like to defer. Okay. Ms. Carolyn, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement, and you are now on the clock.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. As you said, I am Carolyn Riley Payne, and I am the current president of the NAACP Seattle-King County branch. You read a part of my bio, so I will only say that my advocacy, my love for this work started, as you said, in Durham, North Carolina, when I started as the vice president of the Youth Council. And from there, because we were in the hearts of the civil rights movement, I got involved, and my passion became, I wanted to integrate a coffee shop. And that is so that my mom could go in and get a cup of coffee without carrying it out. That's how I got started. I got started because I know what it is to be discriminated against. I know what it is to see the signs that say colored only. I'm the one that had my friend stand at the top of the stairs so that I could drink out the fountain to see what the difference in the water was. I'm the one that got hit in the head with a billy club because I was singing We Shall Overcome. Moving to Seattle, I have been an advocate for not only children, but women and government workers. I helped start the Blacks in Government Region 10. I was a national vice president for cultural awareness for federally employed women. I have served as the chairperson for the Jubilee Women's Center here in Seattle. So my advocacy and my love for this, for the work, and has gone across it crosses all spans. It's not just
10
children,
more seconds.
but it's wherever right needs to be found.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I just said you had 10 more seconds. I was just giving you a time check. I will be announcing 10 seconds. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
And
okay. Okay.
Mr. Damper, you have 2 minutes for your opening statements, and you are now on the clock.
Thank you so much, community. My name is Deaunte Damper, and since I don't have a bio, I'll give you a brief history of where I am and where we can go. I have been a part of this. I grew up in the southern area of Seattle. I did not know what advocacy looked like until it was actually time to start showing up for my own self. and that led into the spaces of health disparities within this community. Working as a case manager for the state, I continue to advocate for that health disparity and lead it by being the only Black navigator in the state, which led me to do jail advocacy to the NAACP. Throughout my time in the NAACP, I've advocated, protected, and built my community by giving more information in the spaces of being the first ever LGBTQ chair of the organization nationally. And now we're here. In the midst of a pandemic and police injustice, we have been completely stagnant and silent when it comes to holding the police and city council accountable. And also, we have lacked in the spaces of constitution and bylaws, which is something that we should have paid attention to the first part of this tenure of the Sadiqa space, which we need to be held accountable for. At this point, we have been a lot of, oh, we're here, but now it's time for us to get active. It's time for us to show up. We have a lot of people who are very seasoned in the spaces of leadership, but after a while, the message gets stale. We have to continue to be in a space to move forward, not let anybody else pull our strings or tell us how to lead.
10 seconds.
We know how to lead. And by the time we finish this conversation, you will understand why I should be your next president of the NAACP, King County. Thank you.
And Erwin Chappel, the third candidate who did agree initially to be part of this debate, sent a letter. And the letter says this: please read the following to your audience. Although I would have enjoyed the opportunity to debate with the other two candidates, I cannot in good conscience go against the wishes of the executive committee who voted affirmatively that candidates should not participate in the debate this Friday. This is mainly due to a scheduling conflict with our Freedom Fund fundraising week. The timing of the debate, which was not anticipated, is unfortunate. However, if I am to be an effective leader, then I should be sensitive to the input and the wishes of those I am trying to build trust with and to foster a good morale. As I stated in my interview with Rainier Avenue Radio, you have to start within the organization for reform before you can work outside the organization. With an upcoming debate sponsored by the NAACP for its members scheduled for Monday, I have made a decision to honor the committee's wishes and prepare for that event. This is not about me, but the mission of the NAACP. I realize others will second guess and even pontificate why I should participate, but anyone who has been in the leadership knows that sometimes you have to make decisions that are not popular and you have to deal with the consequences of those decisions. I am supremely confident that no matter what, I have made the right decision. I can accept whatever comes with this because my focus, values, and principles are intact. Thank you for the opportunity, and I wish the other candidates well. There are two candidates here, so whatever was taking place, there are two candidates here, but we respect your decision not to come. That does not mean that you will not be held accountable. You are simply not here to defend yourself, and you are not going to be attacked, but if your name comes up, this is the letter that I have to refer to, and your decision is your decision. I'd like to go now to our, we'll start with Caden. Caden, do you have a question? And Caden is taking our Student Election Connection. Yeah, Caden, are you a student at the Rainier Valley Leadership Academy? Hello, Caden? Daniel, is Caden still there? Caden, can you unmute your mic? Okay, we'll see if we can get back to Caden. Caden, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, Caden, are you a student at the Rainier Valley Leadership Academy?
Yes, sir, I am.
All right. And I've heard a lot of great things about, I should say scholar at the Rainier Valley Leadership Academy, and heard a lot of great things about the school. Do you have a question that you would like to ask our members, candidates for presidency of the NAACP Seattle King County chapter?
So I made a couple, but the one I'm gonna choose to say is one about school. So how do you plan to support the Black and global majority children in schools and make sure they get the best learning experience?
All right, excellent question, Caden. And I thank you for joining us, man. This is a hot seat, and appreciate it. Great question, and that question will initially be directed towards Ms. Riley Payne. Do you need the question repeated? Okay, are you good?
Yes, please. Thank you, because I did not hear the question.
Okay, Caden, can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Mm-hmm. The question is, how do you plan to support the Black and global majority children in schools and make sure they get the best learning experience?
Okay, Ms. Riley Payne.
Okay, something is
you
wrong
have.
with my mic, or I didn't hear it.
He's asking how do you plan to support?
So Tony, let me just.
How do you plan to support global majority students? Is what he was asking, in a nutshell. And you have 1 minute to answer the question.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Well, Caden, thank you for the question. How I plan to support Black and brown students going forward is to continue to advocate for them, continue to excuse me, to be in the space in areas in the schools, with the school board, working with parents and the PTAs to get the kinds of services that students need as we identify them in the community and as the schools identify them. We'll continue to do what we've always done, continue to work in the space with them, trying to make sure that we have equity, they have what they need, and we hold teachers accountable for
10
teaching.
seconds. Okay, Mr. Damper, same question. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Caden, for that question. When it comes to education, I know that someone just explained to you that we work hand in hand. But my standpoint on education, when we have a standpoint, especially being represented the NAACP, we go tell them exactly what the issue is and we follow through. For the past 2 years, I've been working with Black Lives Matter in school, trying to bring in HIV education from a Black lens into the school. Proud to say that I'm now contracted in that space because we actually need to have more cultural representation when we are teaching students about what's impacting us in our space. Just more so recently, I just actually worked, one of the things that I just recently was a part of was Referendum 90, which was a more extensive
10
space
seconds.
Education bill. And I do want to add on that the board of the NAACP at that point did turn down advocating for this bill. And I think it's more so because of this through the older,
and that's time.
Older lens.
That's time.
We need to be in the spaces of actually
Deaunte,
showing.
that's time.
I thought you said.
Yeah, there was 10 seconds at that point, but that's time. Caden, that was a great question, man. Thank you for participating in the class. Thank you for representing Rainier Valley Leadership Academy. Great question. We also have Ayla. Ayla, you have a question for us. Ayla is, I believe, a senior at Mount Lake Terrace. Ayla, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And Ayla, you just completed the Student Election Connection. Congratulations. Do you have a question for our candidates for the presidency of the NAACP?
I do. It's pretty similar to what Caden said, but my question is, how do you see the NAACP participating in schools to build anti-racism curriculum?
And initially that question will go to you, Mr. Damper. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Ayla. I think one of the things that is important within building that is, I think that one of the things that the superintendent in Seattle Public Schools has been working on is their Black Men Leadership Program. I think that having those conversations, because I think that in our spaces, we know that Black and brown people are discriminated against, but I know that there's already, how can I put it? It's already set up for us, for young Black men out there to fail. I think that by reaching out to those leaders in that space, such as Kevin Loyal and Miss M.T. Parker, would actually have a better follow through for NAACP to go in, not go against the grain in the spaces when we already have Black leaders in the space.
10 seconds. Okay. And Ms. Riley Payne, same question. Would you like the question repeated? Carolyn? Carolyn?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you like the question repeated?
I'm here.
Okay. Would you like
Yes, please.
Okay. Ayla, would you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, my question was, how do you see the NAACP participating in schools to build anti-racism curriculum?
Okay. Well, first of all, we are already doing that through our ethnic studies push. So we are, as the sponsor to the ethnic studies program in the Seattle Public Schools, we're reaching out and moving that throughout the districts in Seattle, King County, and in the state. So we're working with the ethnic studies. We're also providing through a program that we call ACSO, the Academic Olympics program, providing training and information through that source to take, so the students can learn how to advocate for themselves. And so that's how I see the NAACP continuing their work
10 seconds.
in that way in the schools.
Ayla, wonderful question. Great job. And thank you for your participation in the Student Election Connection. Our next student is a freshman at the University of Southern California, Seattle native, and was also the program coordinator and instructor for our Student Election Connection, which again took place in high schools all over the state. And Taylor Corrine, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Do you have a question for our NAACP presidential candidates?
I do have a question. So my question requires a little bit of context, but basically a recent spate of deportations of African asylum seekers from the US in the last weeks of the Trump administration has attracted widespread negative attention and or condemnation from human rights advocates. Under the Trump administration, ICE has been following through with President Trump's expectations of a more aggressive approach to tightening immigration that's primarily focused on seeking refuge status from different parts of the world. And deportations of African migrants or immigrants have grown under President Trump, often at a higher rate than immigrants from elsewhere. And his administration has restricted travel and immigration from Nigeria, Sudan, Tanzania, Eritrea, Libya, and Somalia, in what activists call an African ban. So my question is, what will the Seattle King County chapter of the NAACP do to protect our African immigrant communities?
And that question initially goes to you, Ms. Riley Payne. 1 minute.
Well, we will continue to work with the African community to ensure that that does not happen and that we have a voice. We have been working with the Justice Department on just on that one of those issues already in one of our school districts, and we have set up a plan to put it out in the community for all of us to advocate so that we'll know how to do it. So we will be doing some training and more than that, working with those people, that community and their advocacy. We will follow, not only follow their lead, but we will take the lead as the national is already doing.
10 seconds. Okay, Taylor Corrine, again.
We will.
You can have 10 more seconds if you like it. Okay, we'll move forward. Taylor Corrine.
Okay.
Taylor Corrine. Go ahead. We'll
continue to be open to receiving information from the community on what they need and develop plans with them on how to get that done.
All right. Thank you.
And that's working with the Justice Department.
And Another phenomenal question from our youth. Thank you for participating and being part of this. Congratulations to all of you for engaging in this political process, and just very proud of each of you. Thank you so much. We're going to move on now, and I'm going to welcome Mr. Carl Mack.
I can't answer her question?
Oh, Deaunte, I'm sorry.
I just thought
Deaunte, you're right, Deaunte.
I feel like I have to answer.
I'm sorry. Do you need the question repeated? I'm sorry.
Oh, not at all. I heard her very clearly.
Go ahead,
and
Deaunte.
That is one of the visions that I have had, because it's really essential that we start having more inclusiveness when it comes to the NAACP, when it comes to our African American community and our African born community. When you think about the International Rescue Community, the Refuge Women Alliance, Center for Multicultural Health, just to name a few, these communities are essential, and we actually need, there's things that the NAACP King County has actually been very lackadaisical about when it comes to civil rights. And one of the things that we should be jumping into, not just with the Trump administration, but also holding the Biden administration too accountable for making sure that our dreamers are protected. And us being here in the Northwest, we have a lot of accountability to do.
10
and
seconds.
A lot of that accountability deals with us coming together. Because I think that we have been very distant. But now it's time to come closer. And I thank you for that question.
And I apologize, Mr. Damper. You certainly had a right to answer that question. I kind of skipped over it. Now we're going to move on to Mr. Carl Mack and Ms. Michele Merriweather. And I'd like to welcome them both. And we will begin with questions. And we'll start with Mr. Carl Mack, who is the former president of the NAACP. And Mr. Mack, can we have your first question, please?
Yes, thank you so much. Understanding the high-profile cases, the murder of Manny Ellis, the murder of George Floyd, I get that those high-profile cases. And it's very easy to come out there to deal with that. But what I'd like to know is that in the past 2 years, how many civil rights cases have you all personally worked on, not as a branch, but how many civil rights cases in the past 2 years? And I'm only going back 2 years because Deaunte Damper, I think you've only been involved with the NAACP within a 2-year framework versus you, Ms. Payne. So in the past 2 years, how many civil rights cases have you personally worked on?
And Deaunte, this question is for you initially. You have 1 minute.
Absolutely. So really what ended up happening is I did take on a case, and I partnered with our criminal justice chair at the time, Sade Smith. It was a custody-based case where the state ended up taking her children. Even she had to go through a space of even having to take a lie detector test, still passed the lie detector test, and they still took her children. What me and Sade ended up doing, due to the fact of my previous history and already working in the courtrooms over the past 2 years, I was able to not only help her create a service plan, and our criminal justice chair worked hand in hand with getting that woman back custody of her children. I think we do talk a lot about police brutality, but we also have to think about the visions of keeping our family homes. And no one deserves, especially Black and Brown. We go through a lot of CPS issues where we as NAACP can actually help navigate them through that issue. I thank you very much for the question.
And I'm sorry, Tony, before it goes on, so that means one case. You have worked on one case.
I worked on one case where we successfully closed. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And there will be the opportunity for rebuttal. Let me add that as we move into this phase of it. Our moderators can rebut, and then they ask for rebuttal, and then our candidates will get 30 seconds to respond to that. Ms. Riley Payne, same question. Would you like the question repeated?
No, thank you. Thank you. I worked personally, Carl, on the Manny Ellis case. We're still working with that in partnership with Mr. James Bible. Sean Furr, we worked with his family. We're continuing to do, we work with my police accountability chair, his name escapes me right now, in walking in up on Queen Anne Hill that got killed. But those are cases that I have, if you want personally involvement, that I have been personally involved in the last 2 years. We have been working on other cases, but if you want to say personally, those are the ones that I'm working on and have worked on in the past.
Any follow-up, Mr. Mack?
No, thank you.
Please rebuttal.
It's up to the moderator. So that's where we're at.
Damper?
Yes, I just wanted to just be very clear, because the cases that you named, that you said that you worked on personally, you actually work on, those are cases that are part of this NAACP state area conference. So are you speaking that you worked in that space on your own personal behalf without the state area conference? Or do you want to make sure that you're being very clear on exactly what you've done with the NAACP and NAACP state area conference? Because
Ms. Riley Payne, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, well, let me
30 seconds.
Give you some clarity on that. I worked on the Manny Ellis case as the King County NAACP also, because his grandmother is a member of our organization, a life member.
10 seconds.
Mr. Sean Furr. Those are cases, yes, that cross over into the state, but those are things that the NAACP Seattle King County has also was working on.
That's time.
Deaunte.
So Tony, for the clarity of this question, I want it understood to those who are interested in, is that you have to understand that you have two candidates, and between the two of them, they worked on 3 NAACP cases in the past 2 years.
Okay. And welcome, Miss Michele Merriweather.
Carl, that's not.
Well, we're going to stop right there. Michele Merriweather, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Tony?
Under the circumstances, fantastic. I know that you did send the bio, and so I'm just going on time here. We know that you are executive director of the Urban League, and I know a bunch of other stuff too. Congratulations on the Black Futures Co-op Fund, which is another thing that has happened during this time period. And again, but I want to get to the questions now. So your first question for our candidates.
For doing this, Tony, this is so necessary. The Urban League and the NAACP, you know, I've heard legends about how Carl and my predecessors worked together and stood for justice. And, you know, I hope to see the same for the future of the NAACP. So my question is about, quite frankly, about leadership. The NAACP traditionally and historically has been volunteer-led. And with in the last, administration or earlier last year, there was some debate and discussion about this being a paid position, because this is a lot of work and a lot of time, but it is volunteer-led. And so I want to know your thoughts on why you think it is important for this position to be volunteer-led, and or if it's not, why, and your thoughts on that.
This question initially goes to you, Ms. Riley Payne. You have 1 minute.
Okay. Well, yes, it is a volunteer position and it is a lot of work. And right now, as a volunteer, I would say that some compensation is in order for the time that you spend doing the community work. You may not work on one thing yourself personally, but the organization does, and people expect you to be there. The national office, the way the organization is built, it is built on volunteers. So I would be in favor of some form of compensation for whoever holds this position going forward, just because of the amount of time and with the issues, and it has changed. The way that we do the business in the community has changed.
And time. Mr. Damper, same question. Would you like the question repeated?
Right. I have heard, before I got on the board, the cabinet voted for the previous president without actually doing a thorough background check on exactly who they are and what they bring to the table, they approve for that person to receive a monthly stipend of $1,200 a month. Keep in mind that was also what the first Vice President Payne was also in that space as well, to approve of them to receive the stipend. I give my to this community freely and don't ask for anything in return. The reward is advocating for civil rights. The reward is showing up for the less fortunate, the forgotten, which we as a Black community, we have to constantly remind one another of that. And I don't need to make a out of 15 cents to show up for my community.
10 seconds.
I do think that people can be compensated for something that they purchased and the treasurer paid them back for within the space of that.
And that's time.
I do not think
that's time. Ms. Merriweather, any follow-up?
Can I?
What? It's up to the Ms. Merriweather. Any follow-up?
Yes, please. If Payne would like to clarify, that's fine.
30 seconds.
Yes. What I like to add to that is that getting a compensation you cannot pay somebody to do this job. And as a advocate of 40 years in this community, working and advocating for our community with no compensation, and sometimes not even being
10 seconds.
compensated for gas or anything, those kinds of things. Those are the kinds of things that the organization has to decide, not one individual.
And that's
and
time.
What's good for the organization.
Mr. Damper, you have 30 seconds.
Oh, no follow-up.
Okay. We're going to be back after this break. We'll be back with more of Mr. Mack and Ms. Merriweather. We'll take this up to 2:30 instead of 2:15 so that they can get their questions in. We'll be back after about a 2-minute break right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not translating the lyrics of Boogie Oogie Oogie for bored Europeans, I'm listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Women are not an homogenous group. We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle-King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
Sunday nights from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's K-Fox Night Beat with DJ Nastiness.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music. RainierAvenueRadio.world.
RainierAvenueRadio.world. Breaking radio boundaries.
Keep on running cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Welcome back to RainierAvenueRadio.world. This is our community election connection and the debate with the candidates of the NAACP Seattle-King County chapter. We're going to go right back into this. The former president of the Seattle-King County chapter, Mr. Carl Mack, can we get your next question?
Yes. And in relation to, and my next question certainly leads to this question, but I will put in context. In the 107-year history of the Seattle-King County branch of the NAACP, we've never won the Class 1A Thalheimer Award, which is the award that represents the best of the 1,800 branches. That happened when I was president I had a full-time job. I had a child, marriage, never got paid. So the idea of getting paid also depends on the resources within the branch. And the last I knew, the resources within the Seattle King County branch certainly wouldn't warrant that. So if you don't have the time and blood, sweat equity to give, the idea of getting paid, which is why we have had such problems under the last administration. But to that point, that this is a volunteer organization, I can't tell you how many times while I was in Seattle, and I've still heard, you call the NAACP, you can't get anybody to answer. So I get that because it's a volunteer organization, nobody's going to be there to answer the call. But what are you going to do as president of the NAACP to ensure that when the community calls and they're not members of the NAACP, but yet they are in need of help, that this organization returns their calls? What are you going to do under your administration for that?
Mr. Damper, this question goes to you first. You have 60 seconds.
Yes, sir. I think that is very essential. You know, this year I've really got into the mission statement about securing political education and social justice. And the way I can do it, I can't just talk about it, be about it. So when the communications chair actually reached out to the board and said, I need volunteers for this call log. I need us to answer calls. I need us to start following through. It was me that continued to do that. So if president continued that and answer the call, I would once a week, I would do the calls. I mean, 2 times out of the week, and make other board members do it. We need to make sure we actually have a legal redress on standby in those spaces to show up, because I don't think that people just want to hear from the board members. It takes the head for people to follow. So I think that by being a true representation of this community,
10
I have to
seconds.
be able to answer the phones. So I really do, and what I mean by that is actually being in the spaces of showing up. And I thank you very much.
That's time. And Ms. Riley Payne, same question. Would you like the question repeated?
No, thank you. What I would do is what we're doing now, having setting up a committee that goes through and calls people back. People sitting on the executive committee have an obligation to call people back. We have that set up. I'm glad to hear that Deaunte did step up and say that he would call, but we have had that in place for the last a year. As far as calling myself, there is nothing that I don't do, and calling is one of them. But what I would do is have a person. I'm looking to raise funds and to have somebody that's in the office that can get volunteers on a regular basis to come in and not only answer the calls, but up with the people on the calls. So we do have some internal structural problems that we need to continue to address.
And that's time.
But I need people that are willing to do it other than just talking
time.
about it when it's time.
That's time. That's time. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I do, Mr. Mack, any follow up?
No follow up. Thank you.
I do want to add that there is a third candidate, Mr. Erwin Chappel. He elected not to participate in this debate. Again, his response to me, I cannot in good conscience go against the wishes of the executive committee who voted affirmatively that the candidates should not participate in this debate. And also said that this is mainly due to a scheduling conflict with the Freedom Fund fundraising week. We do have 2 candidates here who are participating, though. And again, this isn't personal. This is an attack. But there needs to be transparency. And if you are here, you have the opportunity to answer the questions and defend yourself. If you don't, then you're not here. So we'll go to Ms. Merriweather for your next question.
Yes, thank you, Tony. So I found out about this decision of the executive committee at 1 o'clock. And so both of you serve on that executive committee and you're both here. So I'm curious to know, why that decision was made and how, if not through this channel, do you expect to connect, if you're elected president, with the community at large and not necessarily the members of the organization.
Ms. Riley Payne, you have 1 minute.
I can understand how confusing that looks. But when the board, the executive committee made the decision that this would impact the upcoming one that we were having on Monday night, it was decided that this would not be an NAACP sponsored event. They did not say do not come on. They just left it up to the individual candidates to do that. Excuse me. So what we it's a personal choice to come on, and yes, my executive committee did to vote to not to do that. But as a candidate, in order to get my voice out,
10 seconds.
I decided that it was the thing for me to do is to show up, and so that my voice could be heard. And therefore, I think that
that's time.
Anybody that didn't want to come or came on, it was a personal decision.
That's time.
It was not
that's time.
An organization decision.
That's time. Okay. And again, Mr. Damper, do you need the question repeated?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So I found out that there was a discussion and a decision for the NAACP not to participate today. And it's important that the community at large, not just the members, hear about what is going on with the NAACP. So I am curious, both of you serve on the executive board, why the decision was made, and how you intend on connecting with community if you were elected.
60 seconds.
Absolutely. I've always been in the spaces of connecting with community. I've been in the space of also holding my board accountable with connecting for community. In the process of going through this election process, I have always been very vocal about speaking to media. One of the most essential keys to getting out to community and for them hearing where we're at is our Black media. For us to try to silence ourselves away from Black media is almost an insult. Especially when you look at the partnership that Rainier Avenue Radio and Urban League has already had through the candidate forums. They are trying to show us that we are essential and that they need our leadership. So it speaks volumes and Carolyn to both be here because it actually shows what leadership looks like.
10 seconds.
That's it.
Okay, so I will just repeat again. What I have for Mr. Chappel is what it says here, and this is all I can go by. I cannot in good conscience go against the wishes of the executive committee who voted affirmatively that candidates should not participate in this debate. That's what it says. Mr. Mack, your next question, please.
Yes, thank you. And I'll direct this question in regards to Erwin Chappel. It's my understanding that Erwin Chappel placed a consent form in for second vice president. During the nomination committee process, he was nominated from the floor and he accepted that nomination for now president and then submitted a consent form, which now means he had two consent forms for two different positions. Seems problematic according to the Constitution and bylaws. So do either of you believe that he should even be a candidate for president since he spoke about his commitment, the mission of the organization? Is that not against the mission to violate the Constitution and bylaws of even being a candidate when you broke the Constitution and bylaws by having two consent forms in for two positions? What are you all's position about Erwin Chappel being a candidate for president in violation of the Constitution and bylaws of the NAACP?
Ms. Riley Payne, you first. You have 60 seconds.
Okay. If that were true, Carl, I would.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Of course.
If it were true, or is it not true?
He had a consent form for a second vice president. He was never on the ballot for a vice president. He is eligible to be to run for president because he was not put on the ballot, or was he on the ballot or confirmed by the nominating committee at all. So he was eligible to run for president. As
I just want to be sure I understand
well, let me give her entire 60 seconds.
Okay,
before.
my apologies. Go ahead, Madam
Okay.
President.
Okay, as I understand it from, I've not gotten this directly from the nominating committee, but from the election committee. That is what we were told. And so based on that, yes, he would be eligible to run for president.
Seconds.
If that is not true, if it comes to be that is not true, then we'll have to use the process at the end of the election to correct that.
That's time. And Mr. Damper, same question. Do you need the question? Would you like the question repeated?
No, sir. I definitely don't. I've been trying to get this board prepared for this election for the past 2 months, and when it comes to Erwin Chappel, I called it out once it happened, and he is not qualified. He had 3 different consent forms that weren't even properly signed, and he applied for two different positions. He also did not write the nominating committee withdrawing his nomination for second vice president, which you can't vote for two. You can't run for. You didn't see Kamala Harris saying, "I'm going to go for second president and the Senate seat at the same time." So, and also, like, we have someone from the nominating committee and the election committee that's on the call, and also has to come to the space of accountability for you too, because I had a conversation with you with bylaws, and you also agreed. You're not speaking truth to power when you can't be transparent.
Mr. Stop. Mr. Mack.
Any follow-up? The question is simple. Were there 2 consent forms for 2 different positions? Because your answer was he was on the ballot. It is my understanding that he had a consent form in for second vice president. According to the Constitution and bylaws, you're supposed to write a letter to rescind that consent form. Then you're now eligible to submit another consent form for a different position. So was there a letter written withdrawing his consent form for second vice president?
Miss Carolyn Payne, Miss Riley Payne, 30
Are you
seconds.
asking me, Carl?
I'm asking both candidates.
Yeah, it'll go Miss Payne, Riley Payne, it goes to you first. 30 seconds.
I don't know that happened. I was not on the nominating committee, and I was not a part of the election process, supervisory election committee. I followed what I thought was the rule of what I know as rules is that if I'm a candidate for the position, I should not be involved in any part of the process for the election of any kind. So I don't know that there was a letter written or not written. I don't know anything about that.
There was not a letter written.
And Mr. Damper, you have 30 seconds.
There was not a letter written. There was not a letter written. When I spoke to the secretary, it was stated, well, we're moving forward, but I was trying to hold us accountable so then we can show community that we are actually reading. This is where it goes back to what leadership looks like. In order to be a leader of this organization, we have bylaws and constitutions that need to be abided by.
10 seconds.
To be in the spaces of leadership, for both Erwin for not reading his bylaws, which we can get into later on about something else, but also it comes back to this.
And that's time. Ms. Merriweather, next question.
All right. I'll ask this question. And I hate to keep going back to the financial health, but the financial health of any organization is detrimental. And so I need to know how you all, as leaders, plan to manage the financial health of this organization. Because if your financial house is not in order, we will be right back here again. And I don't want to be here again with this very important organization.
Mr. Damper, this question goes to you. Initially, you have 60 seconds.
Absolutely. I think that it's one of the things that needs to happen if I am president. It would be in the spaces. The first thing to happen is our treasurer. We need at least 2 treasurers in our spaces for as our treasurer, even right now in our spaces of leadership. And this is so essential. And this is where we question the leadership. Our treasurer is not even bonded. And that is a really big deal, especially if we're just now coming out of financial hell debt. And it speaks volumes to the leadership on what that looks like. Our first thing that needed to happen in our spaces of the in-house is getting credibility. The credibility starts back with, we heard your community, we have a bondable chamber, and we're ready to start coming out to community and receiving and doing functions. And when it all comes down to it, our treasurer is probably one of the most essential pieces to our board, our treasurer and our secretary.
And that's time. Ms. Riley Payne, would you like the question repeated? Hello, Carolyn?
Yes.
Would you like the question?
It's frozen. Can you hear me?
Yes. Ms. Merriweather, would you repeat the question, please?
Yes. The question is, how, as president, will you ensure the financial health
as the No, thank you.
Ms. Riley Payne, are you there? I think you're having a problem with the internet, and I don't want that to be the reason why you don't get to say.
Oh.
Okay, so whenever you start, you have 1 minute.
I'm back now. I don't know what happened, but I plan to do the kind of fiscal responsibility. I plan to put the financial fiscal responsibilities in place. Our treasurer has just been on board for a few months. He is in the process. We are in the process of looking into doing just that, getting him bonded, and doing many things that need to be done structurally, internally for this organization that had not been done. We worked very hard this past year to get, since April, since I became president, to get our credibility back, to be more visible in the community, to work with community organizations, and to be fiscal responsible. And we are working on all of those things with the help of the current sitting executive committee. Rather than, these are some things that we have been working on, but have not necessarily been brought to the forefront by my candidate, by the other candidates. So thank you.
Ms. Merriweather, any follow-up?
Yeah, so can you further elaborate on how perhaps maybe you'll bring that transparency to the paid members of the organization? Because that's where I think there is some.
Yes.
Mr. Damper, 30 seconds.
Oh.
Mr. Damper, 30 seconds.
Can you please repeat the question? My apologies.
Yeah. Can you further inform us how you plan on providing that level of transparency to the membership base?
Absolutely. I think that it's more so what we haven't been doing in our membership meetings is actually having a follow through on letting people know exactly where we're at in the spaces, not specifically giving you each and every things that have been. But I think it's important for us to not only have a treasurer in the space to look at our money, but also teach our community exactly how to save theirs too. So financial literacy classes are essential, not just for our board, because we obviously need them too if we've been going through this for 2 years without a bond.
And that's time. And Ms. Riley Payne, 30 seconds.
We'll have financial reporting to the general membership. We plan to have a finance committee that will be talking to the community, talking at meetings, helping them understand where we are. And we'll be doing further workshops, et cetera, to teach our community about finances as we've done in the past, but
10 seconds.
Specifically for the organization, financial reporting.
Okay. Thank you. And we're going to take a quick break here. Mr. Mack, I want to be considerate of your time. As I mentioned before, if you would like to stay, you can. I knew that this section, and we got pushed back a little bit because of the context I needed to do at the beginning of the show. So if you'd like to stay, you're welcome. I do know that you've already stayed longer.
If you could, I just have two questions that I'd certainly like to squeeze in. One of them is on top of Ms. Merriweather.
I can give you one because then we'll have to go to break.
Okay. All right. So in regards to Ms. Merriweather's question, which is extremely important, both of you have been on the board for 2 years. Sister Merriweather just talked about the financial integrity of the branch. The bylaws clearly state that the treasurer has to be bonded. For the 2 years that you all have been involved with the NAACP, has the treasurer been bonded? Because whether you just got the treasurer 6 months ago or 6 days ago, that expense is supposed to be paid by the branch. So under both of you, one as president and one as a board member, have you served the NAACP in the last 2 years when your treasurer was bonded per the Constitution and bylaws and per Sister Merriweather's question about the financial integrity and stability of the organization?
Ms. Riley Payne, you have 60 seconds.
No, we have not had a bonded treasurer in the last 2 years. There was no money in the treasurer to pay for a bonded treasurer,
But you had money to pay.
That's all I can say.
I got 60. I got Mr. Mack. I got to give her 60 seconds, unless you're forfeiting that time, Ms. Riley Payne.
I think Carl was going to say we had money to pay for
expenses. To give you all stipends. You got money to spend on a stipend, but you don't have money to ensure the financial integrity of the organization.
Nobody got a stipend, Carl.
Okay, we're gonna
except
not
the treasurer.
sway from this.
Except the president.
Okay, so if you have 60 seconds and you're forfeiting that time, Mr. Damper, you have 60 seconds to answer that question.
Yes. I will take full responsibility on one of the things I have learned over my first 2 years is reading my Constitution and learning exactly what it takes. In January of 2020, I requested for us to get a financial committee, and it went unheard. When the topic came up of the current treasurer being bonded, I wanted to continue to have the conversation, and in my president's words, as of Monday, we have too much other things to do, so we'll just get to it later. And basically, when it all comes down to it, especially hearing two matriarchs ask the question, it's taking accountability for exactly what we need to fix. And one of the things that we have to fix before we go anywhere would have to be our finances. Accountability on that, and to move forward as the next president, that would be the first step.
Okay, we're going to go to break, and as I mentioned before, I would like to thank the candidates who did show up, and that's a big step right there to take these questions, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we'll figure out, we'll finish this up, and I believe Mr. Nate Miles is going to be joining us. Mr. Mack, I certainly appreciate your time and appreciate your questions and your interest in making sure that our community has answers that we're looking for. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, my brother.
What's on your heart? Are you exhausted at the lack of progress for people of color in business, politics, and life? This is Cindy Bright, the host of Heartbeat Radio. Each week we explore this heart condition of the country that is affecting you and me. We have real conversations about what's necessary for change. It's time to change this dialogue. Will you join this Heartbeat weekly Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio?
Your sexual and reproductive health care can't wait. Not now, not ever. Planned Parenthood is here with you to provide you the quality care you need from the experts you trust. Call or visit us online to book your appointment today.
Join Rainier Avenue Radio from 5 to midnight for Sunday evening sound sessions. Jazz from the cabinets from Big Poppy.
That's right, it's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Sergio LaCour's Love Lines.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Going to the phone line. Tell her who we talking to.
Sage Prince and Just My Opinion.
This is Sage, and that's just about gonna do it for the first half of Just My Opinion.
K-Fox Nightbeat with Nasty Ness Rodriguez.
The beat of the Fox. K-Fox Nightbeat, Nasty Ness.
You know what? You're gonna listen from 5 to midnight. Just turn it on and don't stop. DJ Alibaba, the underground surround sound
Star Time with Paul Pearson. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pearson.
Sunday
And
evening
this is
sound
Star
sessions
Times.
on Rainier Avenue Radio. Trust me, you'll be listening the entire time from 5 to midnight. Sunday evening, your sound session on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Lock in fresh juice with the newest hip hop and R&B.
Every Wednesday night from 9 to 11 p.m.
on Rainier Avenue Radio. You know we got the dopest artists rocking with us every single week with myself, D-Money.
Taylor Hart.
And pint-sized Patron. This is fresh juice every Wednesday. It's Trilltopia.
You know you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome back to part 3 of our Community Election Connection conversation. It's a debate. We have candidates who are running for the position of president of the Seattle King County chapter of the NAACP. Our candidates are Ms. Carolyn Payne, Mr. Deaunte Damper, and Mr. Erwin Chappel. Mr. Chappel initially agreed to come and then changed his mind. I read the letter. I'll read it again later so that you'll have his explanation as to why he's not here. But we're going to move forward, and I'd like to welcome Mr. Nate Miles. Nate, how are you, sir? Nate, are you here with us?
Great, Tony. How are you and everyone else?
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We're going to continue this conversation, and thank you for being here. We're a little behind schedule, and I do appreciate your time. We're going to jump right into this. Mr. Miles, would you like to ask your first question? And that question will initially be directed to Ms. Payne, and then Mr. Damper will answer the question as well.
Yeah, well, to both, then great, to both candidates, you know, really, I wanted to focus a little bit on the historic nature of this unit, the NAACP. It's been around, one of the oldest units in the country. And kind of what does that mean to you from a historic standpoint? And how would you leverage that both nationally and here locally? Being the leader of that organization, I think it holds a special place in the hearts of many because of its historic nature.
And Ms. Payne, that question goes to you initially.
Well, first of all, it is a historical organization. I would leverage it with at the national level by continuing to do what I've already done, what I've always done. I've been on this board for many years under several presidents, standing on their shoulders. So it is important to me for us to continue that legacy, to continue to do, to carry out the mission. We may be doing it differently. I don't mean to continue to do the same thing the same way, but the mission, it is important for us to follow the Constitution, to follow the bylaws, and also to follow the lead of what they have already done, what we have been doing, the importance of being out there, being seen, being heard, not just to be seen, but not to be self-serving, but to serve the community. That's what that's what I see. And it's important. This organization has been here too long and done too much for us not to carry that on and not to follow the bylaws.
Mr. Damper,
yes, Mr. Miles, can you please repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah, how would you, as one of the oldest units in the country, how would you leverage that both on a national level, within the national NAACP, as well as locally?
Yes. Well, since 1909, the NAACP has been around, and I can honestly say, with me being on the board for the past 2 years, one of the things that I've noticed, especially here in Seattle, we've had everything that's been in the spaces of CHOPS. We had everything with the spaces of police chief, so on and so forth. But we've always been the matriarchs of civil rights. No one could ever take that away from us. What I mean by that is really starting to get back out there instead of being more so of what do people call it, a social club, and really start getting in the spaces of educating, protecting, and building within the spaces of policies for our civil rights. I think that one of the things about it is, and I've been screaming this since I've been on the board, is we have to start doing more showing up. And I don't think that we've done that enough, where people they respect the name.
10 seconds.
But it's trying to get an understanding of like what we're here for. What is our why? We need to remix our why.
And that's time. Mr. Miles, any follow-up?
Can you give me an example, either one of you, of running a very large organization as we move forward and people are getting more and more in this George Floyd moment of putting more money into the coffers and wanting to invest in an organization like the NAACP and building it? It's starting to grow. It's starting to be built. Talk to me about your experience in building a larger organization.
This is a follow-up question, so you will have 30 seconds. Ms. Riley Payne.
I have I've worked in an organization in which I had several divisions, branches working for me, people working under or with me on teams. I've led teams. I have been in the community. I've been a Human Services Commission where we established that commission for a city, a community around Seattle. My experience is in organizational development.
Unfortunately,
and so we need to.
That's time. I know that was a longer question. It wasn't exactly a follow-up, but it sounded like another question, but it came as a follow-up, so I had to give it that time. And Mr. Damper, you have 30 seconds for that follow-up.
Absolutely. While working at POCAN, which is known as the People of Color Against AIDS Network, it was established since 1987. I came in as a peer mentor, but worked in 8 of the 9 positions. And POCAN, which was on the verge of being at the spaces of shutting down, I helped build that organization by bringing back community.
10 seconds.
By putting together their first ever Pacific Northwest Black Pride right here in the heart of the south end of Seattle. Lord, what I loved about that was not reaching out, not feeling as within the LGBT community, the workout.
That's time. Ms. Merriweather, your next question, and that question will initially be directed towards Mr. Damper. Both will answer, but Mr. Damper will ask first.
Thank you. Following up on where we are in this moment, we have in Seattle organizations on the ground doing work. Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County Equity Now, that are now taking up the spaces that you would typically historically see NAACP show up. And so my question, you mentioned Deaunte Remix, and Carolyn, you said something about reinventing. My question is, how do you intend on showing up and either partnering with those voices or engaging others?
Absolutely. When it comes to, I have been working as well within the spaces of working with DCRIM on the side, with coming up with police, with service plans for some of the youth that have been in the spaces of CHOP. I have worked with BLM earlier this year and Urban League as well within the spaces of the census. And that's continuing those partnerships. They refuse to come into the spaces and working with the NAACP because we have a lot more atoning to do. So continuing to atone, continuing to create by building the NAACP, we also need a space of having more youth in the spaces of the board, more diversity in the spaces of the board. We have been an organization that usually has been showing up when someone gets shot, but we need to actually be visible before that.
10 seconds.
That's what I've been doing with my partnerships in the spaces and community, and that's continue as president of the NAACP.
Ms. Riley Payne, would you like the question repeated?
Yes.
So in this moment, Black Lives Matter Seattle, King County, and others, King County Equity Now, Decriminalize Seattle, have have taken up the mantle in the spaces where I historically would have expected NAACP to be. And so my question, quite frankly, is how do you plan on being in that space and or partnering with those organizations that are doing great work right now?
60 seconds.
Okay, just like we're doing now, we are in those spaces with those people. We are in conversations with them. We are partnering. We have people on our executive committee that are on their executive boards, and we are doing what we do best: partnering, leading by example, by being at the table, by doing policy. What people are looking for and have been looking for, I guess, is us to be out there marching, etc., and shouting, etc. And that's part of what we do. But now, as we are moving forward at the table, helping write the policy, directing what is going on, and we are in partnership with all the people that you named right this very moment. It's not that we're absent.
10 seconds.
It may be that we are not as vocal, and people don't realize that we're at the table, but we are.
Ms. Merriweather, any follow-up?
I do. I would love an example of the policy that you are mentioning, if possible.
Mr. Damper, you have 30 seconds.
I honestly did not agree with that. I know that two organizations, DCRIM and King County, reached out to NAACP on our stance with the president being a part of the task force, and there was no reply. We do not have partnerships with those organizations, and there is no information that states that. So I just wanted to just be very clear. I personally have been in partnerships with the organizations that I stated outside of the NAACP, but the NAACP having
and that's time
towards a policy.
That's
King
time.
County is not true.
That's time. Ms. Riley Payne, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I guess this is a debate. We just met with King County Equity. We have, like I said, we have people sitting on our executive committee that are working on those committees, working in that space with them. So to say that we're not there is not true. And yes, there's a lot of controversy about us sitting at the table
10 seconds.
At the task force for the mayor, but we are there.
And Mr. Miles, I did not mention, Nate, that you are currently the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for Eli Lilly. I have really take time to go through the bio because I wanted to get some questions in, but I just wanted to share your background and what you're doing right now with our listeners. Mr. Miles, your next question, and that question.
My next question would really be something that the NAACP has been very active on all through its history, from Brown versus the Board of Education on down. And it's something that still today is important, and that's the education of our children, because our children, when you look at where they are disproportionately impacted, they are still there. And I know that the NAACP has concerns about them. We have a superintendent that we're trying to figure out where we're going to go, and the NAACP has some views on the superintendent. My question to you is, how do you feel about the superintendent that is in position, that if this superintendent who has said that she wants to do something in her plan, which I've looked at, and her plan specifically calls for helping African-American males, a lot of the other stuff aside, but I'm just talking about helping the African-American males in the plan. If we were to lose that superintendent, where we've had seven superintendents in the last 20 years, none of which has specifically called out helping African-American males, what do you think about that? Is this someone that we want to help around, keep around, help support, find a way to take the good and throw away the bad? Where do you stand on that?
60 seconds, Ms. Riley Payne.
Well, take the good with the bad. Yes, that's
Can't hear you.
Yeah, I think there's an internet connection on her part that is causing that. So I'm gonna do this again, Ms. Riley Payne. We have not been able to hear you, so I'm gonna give you 60
where
seconds.
are we that are running the program or doing that?
Ms. Riley Payne, you've been going in and out,
Yes.
so I want to give you 60 seconds again because you kind of cut out, and so we'll give you 60
Oh.
seconds again starting from now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. As I was saying, the superintendent of schools has been here. And what has she done? Yes, the mail program is a good program and they're doing some good things, the people running it. However, the overall, the push for the things that we have been pushing for, equity in the schools, equity in, she has a black male program, but she's gotten rid of the black males that were there. For what? And we have been working with her and put out the good with the bad. No, we need a new superintendent that we can work with and will have our best interests of our children in mind, and will demonstrate that. And to date, the only thing she's done is the black male program, and she gave lip service to that in the beginning, and now she's beginning to do it now that she's been called on the carpet.
And Mr. Damper, same question. Would you like the question repeated?
Yes, please.
If you can, Mr. Miles, keep the context a little shorter this time and get kind of to the question for Mr. Damper.
You want me to repeat the question?
Yes.
No, Mr. Miles, I think I can take it.
Okay.
When it comes to the superintendent, the NAACP State Area Conference spoke out about their thoughts on the NAA on the superintendent, which I just don't agree with, because when I'm contracted with the spaces within Seattle Public Schools to actually teach HIV from a cultural lens. The NAACP King County agreed for me to do that, and then with the money that I was getting from that, I was going to donate it towards the education committee. The superintendent not only opened up her doors twice for the NAACP to have our membership meetings in there, she also brought us in the room to have conversations about what we need Black male achievement to look like. I want to see data, because I know that she's actually overturned 2 discrimination policies within the spaces when it comes towards discrimination towards Black and brown people. I can completely understand about ethnic studies. We will always have a conversation with community.
That is time.
What that looks like, but I do not stand with the firing of the mayor and the Black male achievement people.
That's time. That's time. Mr. Miles, do you have a follow-up directly related to your question and the answers you received?
Yeah, no, my only follow-up was, basically, neither one of them kind of answered the question if they thought it was hurtful to turn over superintendent every 2 years to Black kids.
Ms. Riley Payne, 30 seconds.
Okay. I did not understand that question.
Yeah,
No,
if you have a superintendent every
good.
7 and 20 years, that's a new superintendent.
Okay.
So you never have
30
chance to
30 seconds.
No, to answer your question, no, I do not think that's good for us to have the right superintendent. And but until we get the right superintendent, we have to stay diligent with the superintendents that we do put in place, and we need to make sure that when we're looking for them, we know exactly what we're looking for and we get what we're looking for. We have to do better about that. It's not the superintendent's fault.
That's time. We're going to go to our next question. We're going to go to that's time. We're going to go to our next question. Again, our 2 candidates that are here, Mr. Deaunte Damper, thank you very much. And then also Ms. Carolyn Riley Payne, thank you. I will read why Mr. Chappel is not here. He gave me a statement, and the statement says, and we got a call, and again, this has turned into something a little bit different. Someone wanted to speak on behalf of Mr. Chappel. As I said before, you have to be here. Or not be here. And in his letter, it says, I cannot in good conscience go against the wishes of the executive committee who voted affirmatively for the candidates that they should not participate in this debate. And then later on in that same letter, it says, I have made a decision to honor the committee's wishes and prepare for that event. This is not about me, but the mission of the NAACP. I realize others will second guess and even pontificate why I should participate. But anyone who has been in a leadership knows that sometimes you have to make decisions that are not popular. You have to deal with the consequences. I am supremely confident that no matter what, I have made the right decision. So if you're contacting me and you're asking me if you want to speak for Mr. Chappel, you're wondering why I'm not putting you on the air, that's why. And our next question, Ms. Merriweather.
Yes. I would love to know, with all that is going on right now, police brutality, hate crimes are increasing. We are a divided nation and city. What is your mantle? What are you gonna carry as president and leader of this important organization? What is your one thing or two?
Mr. Damper, 60 seconds.
Thank you, Michelle. The first thing that I would hold on to, which we have not done over the past this tenure, is my constitution and bylaws to show me exactly what the mission looks like to lead, as well as the board. I think that one of the things about it is just, and this goes into the spaces of how I've been outreaching to community, is how we can't do this alone. But I think that by building a newer board with real voices that have actually been down there in the paint is the way to really start. I think that one of the things that NAACP King County has not done over the past 2 years that we can do is be more inclusive. And that's inclusive towards just not our Baptist church-led brothers and sisters, but actually be more inclusive towards our Muslim sisters out there in Redmond. Be more inclusive towards our transgender community. Be inclusive of other religious
that's time.
Lenses.
That's
Thank
time.
You, Ms. Merriweather.
And Ms. Riley Payne, 60 seconds.
Yes. The mantle that I will continue to hold up is the one for moving the organization forward with other like organizations to continue to fight for hate crimes, discrimination in any form, and holding up the mantle for our children. We will continue to fight for the education of our children in all spaces, but that they will have that everybody will have a safe space, and that this United States King County can work towards being a hate-free zone. But we will continue to work on eliminating discrimination, eliminating hate crimes, and fighting within the schools, in and out with our youth, to make sure that everybody has an equal education and they have a safe place to do it.
Ms. Merriweather, any follow-up?
For sake of time, Tony, no follow-up.
And this will be our last question, Mr. Miles, and then we're going to give our candidates an opportunity for closing statements. So this will be it. Mr. Miles, one final question for our candidates.
Well, my question, first of all, I have two questions, but I'll limit it to, well, I guess I'll limit it to one.
I got to have you limited to one.
To one on their way out. You know me, Tony B. I need to do this. And I'm going to include all three of you because I think that is, many of you in Seattle used to know Freddie Mae Gaucher, who was here for a long time. She was perfectly able to say the word interesting, but she would always, when she wanted to draw her attention to it, she would say, that's interesting. So it's interesting to me that the NAACP's vote is here. And the executive committee took a vote to not show up on this radio program. And it should be important enough to have a debate. We never used to even have debates. When Carl ran against Lacey, which was, it was broadcast here and far, medium newspaper and everywhere else. It was the biggest thing in NAACP history when Carl took on that deal. And we have this now, we're on radio, we're on the internet and everything else. Why would we have something like this and they would take a vote not to have it be broadcast and tell their people not to go? And so it's interesting to me, and I know I'm an old country boy from Pasco, but I'm trying to figure out, why would your executive committee ask you not to show up, but forget the presidency piece. I don't want to open that can of worms again, but I'm just asking Tony and the other two candidates, why would they ask you not to go on a radio station so that we can all hear what the issues are? That's interesting. Why would that happen?
I'm going to answer first because I'm not part of this. I don't know. We broadcast several debates, as I mentioned before, from the gubernatorial, from lieutenant governor, congressional, legislative. We call the candidate up and we say, would you like to come on the debate? The candidate, we don't call the Democratic whatever it is, or the Republican, and ask them for permission. We just call the candidate, and then the candidate says yes or no. If they say no, then I tell them that our community needs to hear this information. If you want us to vote for you, you need to provide us with something to make sure that our community is informed, because our vote is important. But why they wouldn't, I don't know. I got back to them once I found, and I didn't hear about that. That was told to me. So all I can do is tell you what I've heard. All I got was a letter that said, we hear you are doing this, cease and desist. And then I heard later that the candidates were told not to come on. That's my position. So this question will be directed to, and I'm not involved in this. I'm just trying to get information to our community. That question initially goes to Ms. Riley Payne.
First of all, let me be clear. What happened is that this debate came at a time in which we are right in the middle of our campaign, Freedom Fund campaign, and it was felt by the body.
She's freezing up.
Yep, I will, Ms. I'm sorry, Ms. Riley Payne. I'm going to give you 60 seconds again. Can you hear me, Ms. Riley Payne? Hello, Ms. Riley Payne. Get Riley Payne. Can you hear me? Ms. I'm just gonna. I'll get to it. Ms. Riley Payne. Can you hear me? Hello. I'm thinking it's the network is freezing up over there. Ms. Riley Payne. Can you hear me? Ms. Riley Payne. Oh, this is unfortunate. Ms. Riley Payne, can you hear me? Well, I'm going to switch, and we'll go to Mr. Damper. Would you like to answer that question, Mr. Damper? And we'll see if we can get Ms. Riley Payne in the back.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to answer that. I can honestly just say I know that Erica Conway worked very hard on the Freedom Fund. And I think that and the other board members as well that assisted in the spaces of the Freedom Fund. So they felt like it would take away, but they need to understand that the next president of the NAACP is the most essential thing that is going on right now this week. Because we can't focus on what money's coming in and our treasurer is not bonded. We have to figure out exactly how we're getting structured. Again, the Freedom Fund is great. It used to be one of the social gatherings of the year, but we can't do that right now. We are in a space of stagnation. So in order to move forward, these conversations, when Black radio reaches out to you and says, how can I assist with getting your language out there? This is essential. It's not a debate.
10 seconds.
This is one of the main reasons why we have to show up. We can't continuously do around community. The dance is over.
Okay. Thank you.
So that was the main thing. It was the Freedom Fund.
Yes, sir. That was the argument. Let me add.
Wait. Let me see if I can get Ms. Riley Payne in here because she didn't get her 60 seconds because of the internet. Ms. Riley Payne, are you still there?
I am here. I'm back.
You cut off. So
Can you hear me?
Yes. And you have 60 seconds.
Okay, to answer the question of why they decided to do that. The body, as I said, voted to do that because of the other conflicting things going on this week. They did not say, as I remember, anything about do not come on as a candidate. It was strictly that because it was a conflict and we have our own debate for the community on Monday, that the timing of this debate was taken, was questioned. Because as the organization, why would we not do our own debate first?
Mr.
Did you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Miles. Any follow-up?
No, so you guys have your own debate on Monday in front but it won't be broadcast though.
Yes, it will.
Well, it's going to be broadcast now. It was not initially going to be broadcast. After they refused to do on this one, and then when I said I'm moving forward, there was a decision to find a network to put it on, but it was not going to initially be broadcast, which is why I broadcast it. But after this happened, then there was some urgency put into finding a way to get it broadcast.
No, that's not true, Tony.
Okay. And
and it was not
we'll
and it's going to be
there
a
will
Zoom.
there will be it was going to be broadcast. Now it's going to be broadcast over a bigger network. It was going to be broadcast to the NAACP. Recently that's changed, and you can take that at that point. And right now I want to give the opportunity.
So that's why I'm trying to
mute the microphone. What I would like to do right now, you can leave Nate's microphone open, and you can leave the two candidates' microphones open, and you can leave Ms. Merriweather's microphone open. Again, we had plenty of time to do this beforehand, so you can do it later. Mr. Miles, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Tony. I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing this and giving the community the opportunity. Carolyn, great seeing you. Thank you for your service. You're another life member of the NAACP. Ms. Merriweather, who, by the way, is one of the 100 most influential individuals in Washington State. Congratulations to my dear sister. It's just good seeing you. Tony B, it's always good to see you, my Phi Beta Sigma brother. You keep up the good work. Keep getting the word out there. Deaunte, great seeing you. And Carolyn Riley Payne, thank you for your years of service to the organization. The NAACP, I say to no other like no other. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the biggest, the baddest organization out there that stood for people, continues to stand for people no matter where you are, opening doors and kicking down doors, delivered once again last Tuesday and showed people when they needed to turn out the vote, they turned out the vote and turned out the clown. The circus has left town now. And we've got it on the back of the NAACP. That's what we are. That's who we are. That's what we do. Once again, making sure that we do it. Ain't afraid to tell nobody. Full-throated. That's what the NAACP is all about. Thank you, Tony, for giving us a place to let our voice be heard. We appreciate you. Allison, appreciate you being here. You guys, thank you so much. This has been great. Great spending time with you.
And Ms. Michele Merriweather, Urban League, first of all, thank you for apparently taking the chance to believe in this was being necessary and powering this. Yeah, a lot has gone on, but we made it happen. And we made it happen, and I appreciate you taking your time to be here as a moderator.
Tony, this has to happen. We need a vibrant, thriving NAACP in this region. We need their voice. We need them at the table. I need them as a partner. The Urban League needs, the community needs them. Like this is no hesitation. And of course, Tony, you know, anytime you need the Urban League, we'll be there for you. And I appreciate everything that you do and giving voice and face to community.
Thank you. And now, closing statements from our candidates. And Deaunte, you elected to defer. So Ms. Riley Payne, thank you so much for being here. I know there was whatever went on. At the end of the day, I think you know what I wanted to do was I wanted to present an opportunity for our community members to hear the voices of those who are running for president. And so I much appreciate you being here. And again, we did a 30-minute interview that if someone wants to go back and hear some of your thoughts, they can do that. And that is online now, archived on our website that you can listen to, and also on Facebook. That you can see and listen to as well. And so, Ms. Riley Payne, I want to give you 2 minutes for your closing statements.
All right, thank you. And in that 2 minutes, I want to do a couple of fact checks. First of all, Carl said that the two candidates had only worked on three complaints over the 2 years. That is not true. We have 10 or 12 complaints that we're working on. I'm working on personally. The other thing is Deaunte is not the first LGBTQ chair. That is true. He is the chair for the Seattle King County, and he is the first one. But in 2009, the national board appointed 2 chairs and put it at the national level. I will be calling for policies, police reform, independent investigations, financial stability to this organization. We have worked very hard to bring some structure, some accountability, and rebuild this organization. I will continue to work on those things with a committee, executive committee that's willing to work and not be about self, but be about the business of the organization at all levels, and come forth with the ideas and be able to implement them with us working together. I will be continuing to build partnerships throughout the community, and working in the schools with our children, trying to make sure that they get the kind of education that they need. I ask for your vote. I need to continue the work that we just started in April. We have come a long way since April. We were out in CHOPS. We had the prayer visual in CHOPS. We gave out mask in CHOPS. We were not masks. We were doing voter registration.
And
so those are the kinds
time.
of things that we have been working on, and we want to continue to do those things by being the president of this organization. And thank you, Tony, for allowing me the opportunity to be here.
And thank you for joining us, and thank you for your service. It is much appreciated. Mr. Damper, you have 2 minutes for closing statements.
Absolutely. I really appreciate Payne for being a fact checker, because I also will be a fact checker as well, because it's all about accountability. In 2015 to 2018, Carolyn Riley Payne had NAACP AXO funds in her account. That's why she was removed out of the AXO seat. She was held accountable from that seat, and we continue to move forward. I'm ready to run because it's time for accountability. I'm ready to run because it's time for a change. I don't want to act like I've been in the spaces of CHOPS when NAACP hasn't been there. We need to do more showing up. We have to be more authentic in our strides towards civil rights. We have to start holding our bylaws and constitutions, not just to our forehead, but to our community and representation of our members, so then they know exactly what we stand on. Because for the past 2 years, all you've seen is a big old misappropriation of funds. And that is not the NAACP way. We have to be able to move forward. And for the old members that were there, whose backs I stand on, we would need that type of true representation back. I'm so ready to run, because at the end of the day, I don't want to come around here and lollygag like I'm at a church pie bazaar. It's time to start showing up. And that's all I have for you today. See y'all Monday.
You have 30 seconds left. Do you wish
I
to
got more
forfeit that
time. All right then. I would like to thank Carl Mack, because you held me to the foreground of, you on this board, but what are you here for? Stop letting them tokenize you and stand on something. Start reading your bylaws and pay attention to what is your why. Michele Merriweather, you have been a matriarch for Black women as well as our community everywhere, and I thank you. Nate, I've seen you in community and respect you. And Tony, as always, you've always been a gift to this community.
That's
but
time.
We can't do that without y'all. Let's move forward.
That's time. Thank you both for being here. Again, this has been part of Rainier Avenue Radio's Community Election Connection. We have been doing this since, again, October, with the goal in mind of making sure that our community had the opportunity firsthand to hear from our candidates, not because we want to tell you what to think or how to think, but so that you have the option to decide and discern for yourself. It's your vote. You see how that turned out in the national election. I thought that this was important because, again, the NAACP has historically played a major role in this community and in the state and around the world. And so I decided that we should have a debate about it, and I contacted the candidates. The candidates said yes. If there's somebody out there right now who is feeling like they haven't had their voice heard, I can't do another debate. but I will certainly give you the opportunity to come on the air, no matter who you are. That doesn't change. That's what we do as your community radio station, is provide that opportunity. If you want to have a show on the air, you can have your own show. We'll provide you with the producer and an engineer, and you can do a show for 30 minutes every week. That's what we do. We also offer educational programming. We teach classes in Mercer Middle School, Meany Middle School, and you may not know this stuff about Rainier Avenue because we don't talk about it. We do it. We teach classes at Meany Middle School, Rainier Beach High School, Franklin High School, everything from communications and journalism to app design, web design, film, photography, and in the summers, we teach a math and coding class that we've also taught at the Northwest African American Museum. We've taught at Rainier Community Center. We've taught at the Rainier Vista Boys and Girls Club. Again, we don't talk about that because we do it. We think that it's important that our youth receive information, and we've started our Student Election Connection, again, thanks to sponsorship from the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle and from Seattle Academy of Arts and Sciences, so that we created a curriculum and workshops that was embedded in schools, that was actually taught during school time. We received a lot of acclaim for that, and as you can see from the students who participated in this discussion earlier, they know the importance of how their vote works, how their vote counts, and that's simply what we're trying to do. So if anybody has been offended by the fact that we elected to bring this to the forefront and have voices be heard, all I can tell you is I'm not sorry. Having said that, we are going to return you to our regularly scheduled programming. You've heard from the candidates. For those of you who can vote because you're members of the NAACP, it's your vote. Make a decision. For those of you who are not members of the NAACP, maybe you should think about it because now other people are going to be voting for you. So maybe you should think about it. I understand why you may not be a member. That's why we had this discussion, so that you can see, is this something that I want to be part of? Or maybe you decided I want to be part of moving forward with this. Either way it goes, we're just presenting the information. Thanks again to our students, Caden, Taylor Corrine, and Ayla. Wonderful questions. Thanks again to our moderators, Mr. Carl Mack, Miss Michele Merriweather, Mr. Nate Miles, and definitely a big thank you to Erwin Chappel, who is running, wasn't going to be here today, but still took the responsibility to run. And a very big thank you, who despite, again, however you want to look at it, whether you're saying that they weren't supposed to be here, all I can tell you is the information that I got. But as you can tell, something happened where the candidates were told not to be here. It's just that simple. There was a vote about it. So however you want to semantically arrange that, that's another thing for you to take into consideration. Having said that, thank you, Deaunte, for taking your time to come here today. Thank you, Ms. Carolyn Payne, for taking the opportunity to come here today and at least answer the questions. That's it. That's all the time that I have. That's going to do it for the kid. We're going to return you to our regularly scheduled programming. This is Tony B saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.
Thank you.